Oh, light. Good morning. Ooh, that beat bright this morning. Holy cow. Let me turn that down. I'm a little slow this morning. Good morning, everyone. I am Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. Let me get a little coffee in me. We got to excuse the way we look. We've been working on Project Silver Star and My Richard. Nakia, we're calling him My Richard this week, so you just have to kind of get over it. We're calling him My Richard through October. So we've been working on that, and needless to say, my dude does not look attractive this hour of the morning. So good morning. Today, there's just so much going on, and I'm just going to kind of tie everything together. But today's topic is orange is not in my color wheel. And that is for when we get that urge so often. And if you say we don't, I'm just going to tell you right now, there are times that we get this urge that we want to strangle them. We would, but understand that if you do that, it is a crime, and orange would be something you would be wearing on those days that you want to pop their head off. And we all go through that. So if somebody says, oh, I've never thought about that. Again, there's one of those people who just tell you little stories. So orange is not in my color wheel. It has never been in my color wheel. I am not one of those warm fall people. And besides that, prison orange is ugly. I'm just telling you now. Prison orange is ugly. So there are days that we all want to pop their head off. There are days, we joke around when I think I put a post on, and this was early into this. Good morning, Pamela. This is one of these things that we all kind of go through. And I put a post on early on one time in the group, and it says, how many pillows do you need? And people are like, oh, I like my bed with 2 or 3. The joke had become that, like, when your kids are little and they're asleep, they look so sweet and angelic with their head on a pillow. There are times that I think most of us, a lot of us, would want to put our veteran's head under the pillow. But you understand something? That happens to everybody. We get so caught up in PTSD that we think it's a PTSD moment, or we think it's this. It gets caught up into everybody. And so we do that. So orange is not in my color wheel. It is, how do you overcome those moments? And I'm going to tell you now, again, this is going to be, the next 2 weeks are going to be the most trying weeks in your relationship with your veteran. The next 2 weeks are simply going to be the most trying weeks with your veteran. I was listening to the news, which you know that I believe that you need to watch enough news to get enough information, but not enough to get sucked into. And August 31st is a hard cutoff date for the Taliban. They want all American troops out by that date. And so our veterans are seeing this, and they're getting da-da-da, and they're getting more on edge, and they don't know how to communicate that well with us. So they get short, and they get snippy, and they say things, and it's one of those nights that we just, like last night, and it's everybody I've talked to, and I probably talked to 6 people this morning. Everybody I talked to said, oh my God, I could have killed him last night. And I was one of those people. I was one of those people who just wanted to take the pillow and go and just hold it there. But understand that taking the pillow and holding there, when you die, it causes petechia, and it's a traceable crime, so don't do that. But so orange is not in my color wheel. It's not something I'm going to wear. So how do you overcome that? How do you learn to overcome this? And like I say, the closer we get to the 31st and this date, we talk about dates and how important it is, and I'm a firm believer in dates. When your veteran says, I have a date, good morning, Nakia, I'll call you back when this is over. When we have a date, when our veteran says, I have a date, I am a firm believer in getting my calendar on my phone out and put, he has a date. And I do it as an annual reminder. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you start to understand patterns, it will make sense. Okay? It will make sense that when you start to put it in your phone ahead of time, that, hey, this is a, good morning, everybody. This is a reoccurring date. Put it in your phone. Now you're prepared for that date next year. When all of a sudden they turn from this nice guy that you love, that or woman that you love, that you can live with, and everything is great, and they're your great spouse, and things are rolling along, just like they can in any relationship, and all of a sudden they turn into this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and they're like in this really weird spot. Guess what happens? You look at your calendar, and it's going to send you an alert, and it's going to say date coming up. Okay, so now when that happens, you're prepared for that. There's nothing worse than being blindsided. So August 31st is going to become a date. As we get closer to that date, going into 9/11, we are going to experience more anxiety in our veterans than we've ever had before, probably than in some of their personal dates. I mean, because they just see it. I know when Carl and I were talking, here we've got all these troops. They're sitting at a public airport, right, in one place. And someone asked one of the Taliban authorities yesterday, are you going to extend past the 31st? And I said, absolutely not. Anything else will be considered an invasion. And I'm like, who? So you've got all of our troops sitting here and, prime, whatever. So our guys see that, okay? So they see that, and they see that this date is coming. So our days may get worse. And when that happens, they get kind of in their head. They kind of get short. Little things bother them more. We are also shortened up, and we get a little snippy because it doesn't quite bother us, or it doesn't come out the same way. We don't see it, but our anxiety levels go up too. And so when our anxiety levels are going up and theirs are going up, what are you going to set yourself up for? You're setting yourself up for so much that's going on, that all this is going on, and you're not really talking about it because you don't want to set them off. And all this is going up, and they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to get you uptight, and they have it in their own head, and they got their own plan going on in their head. So all this is going on in one house, and guess what? Now all of a sudden we bite each other's head off. We argue about food. Last night I was like, what in the heck? We went to the store a couple days ago, and Carl loves Alfredo, and we bought some Alfredo, right? Not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. 2 jars of Alfredo sauce. Well, he cooked the chicken, got the garlic, got everything together, and then last night he couldn't find the Alfredo. We looked in the cabinets, we looked in the motorhome, we just couldn't find it. Evidently the bag got left at the grocery store. Not a big deal, right? It's Alfredo sauce. We'll buy some more. He freaked out over 2 jars of Alfredo sauce, and it turned into like this thing went on in our house. And I'm like, it's 2 flipping jars of Alfredo sauce. And so we're watching this escalate, and all I wanted to do at that point was get the pillow, okay? Go get the pillow and hold it there and say, will you just shut up? It's 2 jars of Alfredo sauce. And I sit back now and I kind of laugh about it, right? Literally, it's 2 jars of Alfredo sauce. But it was, and I looked at him and I said, you've been a little snippety ass all day. And he said, well, so have you. And I said, no, I have not. And he says, I have not, you have been. And what are we doing? We're both snipping at each other. So when we kind of step back a few minutes later, we are both like laughing because we realized we were both doing it. So how do you stop from getting in those moments? How do you stop from wanting to use that pillow? And how do you stop from wanting to pop their head off? Because we all do it. We all do it. If you say that's never happened to you, you got the Pinocchio nose going on. It's happened. So how do you stop? You have to be able to walk away. You have to be able to walk away from the situation, whether it is in another room, whether it is go for a walk, whether it is to be able to say things, okay? There are times that we say things that you have to just be able to walk away, and be careful in your verbiage, because you know what I've already said about verbiage. When you say, I'm done, again, abandonment issues come out. Right? Abandonment issues come out. I'm done. And they think, oh my God, you're done with the relationship. You're done with me. You're done with this. I'm trash. I'm done. Nope. Hun, I'm done with this conversation. It's not productive right now. I'm going to lay down. I'm going for a walk. I'm going to go read a book, and we can come back to this, because you got to come back to it, even if it's Alfredo sauce. And I know that sounds silly, but that's not like a massive thing. I know it may sound silly, but it is not this. Alfredo sauce can be what causes the argument, but it's not really the Alfredo sauce. It is what got us to that point. It's what went on underlying that was the snippety thing. What did that, right? See, and that's me now. I don't do that anymore. Stephanie says I actually extended the I'm done message, and I said I'm done with this conversation tonight. So you have to be specific, and remember we talked about specifics in communication. So when you're like this and you get into this point, you have to be able to take a step out, and you have to be able to take that step back. And when you try to continue to communicate and you try to continue to function when both of you are at this snippety level, to the level, you know that when you get to the level you want to take the pillow and put it over the head for a minute, that's time for you to take a step back, because orange is not in your color wheel. Or stripes, okay? Whichever your particular county uses, orange or stripes. Stripes don't ever look good on people that go round and round. Up and down is not bad, but round and round stripes are never good. I'm just telling you. When you get to that point, that is your trigger in your own mind that says, I'm done with this conversation right now. Because we are not being productive. When you get so angry that, and it may not be something they've done, it may be what's going on in your mind too, it may be the events of the day, it may be what they said, it may be a combination of so many things that go on. But when you get to this point where you want the pillow, or you get to this point where you want to pop their head off, or whatever your thing is, okay, when you get to that point, you have to say you're done, because orange is not your color wheel. And we all go through it. We all go through it. And not I'm done. I'm done with this conversation right now. I cannot do it. Okay? Ooh, yeah, I think we all did. Last night was my explosion night, y'all. There was so much that needed to come out. And our little conversation, our argument over the Alfredo sauce was not over Alfredo sauce at all. Our argument, good morning, Haley. Our argument was not over 2 flipping jars of Alfredo sauce at all. Our argument was over all the other things that were going on in our life. All the things that are going on in the world. All the things that are setting us off. All this stuff that was going on. Okay, it all kind of came to fruition, and it was all this little stuff. And so the Alfredo sauce explosion turned into something relatively simple and a conversation that let me bring up a lot of things that I needed to say, and him to bring up a lot of things that he needed to say, but we could do it in a productive way. And that's what happens when we get to these points. When you get to that point that you are so frustrated and so angry that you're thinking about that, and we've all done it. So don't let people say, well, I've never thought about that. Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have. It's like people who say, I've never, ever thought about taking my own life. At some point you probably did. They say that you never have. There's a difference in being suicidal and the thought crossing through your mind at one point in time. I can remember some of my struggles earlier in my past marriage, and my kids were younger and whatever, and just a lot of crap had gone on, and I was like, yeah, Alfredo sauce was the topic, the issue is the underlying reason for the topic being an issue. Sarah Holbrooks, I don't know who your life coach is, but she's quite good. I'm just saying, just putting that out there. So I can remember on that, I was like, well, what if I wrap my car into a tree? Or what if I do this? And I can say, how many people would be at your funeral? That would be embarrassing. And I know it was kind of like a joke, but we've all had these thoughts. And when people say, "Ooh, we can't talk about that because we've never thought about doing that," or, and you know, am I planning a murder? No. Am I planning on doing other things? No. But you can't sit here and legitimately say that those thoughts have never come in and out of your mind, right? Y'all are killing me. You can't say that those thoughts never come in and out of your mind because they do. They all come in and out of our minds. They do that. And so the difference is, how do you learn to handle them? How do you get past that? Because I'm telling you, when you're to the point, most of the time, and you guys are going to relate to this, Carl and I can deal with big issues really, really well. Big issues that are major topics, we deal with really, really well. It's all the little shit that we don't deal with well. It's all the little stuff that we don't deal with well. And so we find that when we get to the point that we gonna need the orange in our color wheel, it's not because of something big. It's because all the little shit that we've needed to talk to all along, we've let it accumulate and accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. And there was something really important that I needed to talk to Carl about that I just needed some clarification on. And I have kept it bottled up inside of me for days because I was like, well, with everything going on in Afghanistan, with everything going on in the world and in his head, and with some of the stuff that we're doing, I don't want to add more to his plate right now. So I let this little itty bitty thing fester, kind of like when you get a little splinter and you don't get it out, and then the next thing you know, your finger's sore and puffy and red and icky. Yeah, that's what it was like. And it wasn't the Alfredo sauce at all. It was that I didn't talk about the things that I needed to talk about over the course of days because I was like, oh, well, we're just going to protect him. And then when you get to that point, you're to the point that you want to put the pillow over the head, right? And so you know that orange is not a good deal. So what should have happened was, one, before we ever got to this point, I should have taken a step out. And I should have said, okay, what if this is really important? Is this something that's really important that I need to discuss with him, or is this something I need to work out in my own head? Because, you know, as we get stressed, and I'm going to use Boone's theory, you know, you have your cup of stress, and everybody's cup is a different size, and your cup is allowed so much stress. And when we don't take time to take old stress out, when we keep pouring stress in, it just overflows and makes a big mess everywhere. And that's just exactly how it is in our lives. You got your cup of stress, however big it is. Some people handle stress better than others. Some people don't get it that way. So you have your cup of stress and you've poured all this crap in it. Now it's overflowing all over everywhere. So you got to take some stuff out. So go back in and look at it. Okay, what? Is this really stressful? And am I just overreacting over something that he really has no control over, or that they have no control over, or that work has no... Am I making a mountain, in my daddy's words, a mountain out of a molehill? Am I doing that? And does this really matter? And is it something we need to talk about? Because it's the little things you do need to talk about. Or is it just the way my brain is dealing with them? So differentiate that. And then when it comes time to talk about, you need to talk about the little stuff. You need to talk about the little stuff. And you know, my point of view is not to use accusations. Not to use accusations. Well, you did this and you did this and you did... No. It is, hey, hon, we need to talk. This thing came to light the other day or whatever. And when I saw it, or when I heard it, or when your action, you know, what you said made me feel. Now, here's the difference. Who's taken ownership of that? I have. Because he may not have meant it at all to me, right? He may not have meant it at all to me, that he, in a negative way. It's the way I took it. So for me to sit here and say, hey, babe, the other day I felt like this when you said this, or I felt like this when you did this, or I was angry when I saw this. Okay? You're not putting blame on them. Now, granted, it may be something that both of you were done, or he did, or you did, or we all did, or they did, or she did. It may be that, but it isn't, they may not have meant it in a negative way at all. They may have meant it in a very different way. That was just something that happened, and they may not have meant it in a negative way at all. But when you start taking ownership for your feelings, not actions, y'all. Well, we do have to take ownership for our actions, but we have to take ownership of our own feelings. That's a hard thing. Taking action of my ownership of my actions is way easier than taking ownership of my feelings. It is so much easier for me to say, well, they pissed me off, or that hurt my feelings, or they did this, and I'm in a bad mood because of this, and I'm in a bad mood because of that, and I'm here because of this, and you did this to me. And your feelings are much harder to take ownership of. It is much harder to take ownership of your feelings because you are the one who feels them, and you are the only one who controls them. Nobody else controls your feelings other than you. Nobody else can control your feelings other than you. It is way harder to take ownership of your feelings. That's a tough battle, to take ownership of your feelings. To take ownership of your feelings. You know, we have times that go on in our life where, and I can remember this in work relationships and in personal relationships and whatever, I felt like there were times that because I was a woman that I was taught like I wasn't smart enough, or I wasn't good enough, or I was being demeaned because I wasn't taken seriously enough because I was a woman. And I can remember that. And then you look at these really powerful women, and how did you get to be this powerful woman? Because they took ownership of their feelings. Because they didn't let somebody come in and say, oh, well, I'm going to say something that's really going to hurt you, and I want you to go off and cry in the bathroom, and I'm going to do this, and you know, this is going to be on you because it's on you to cry because I know you're going to cry. So let me just push that button because that's button pushing, right? We all know that. But when you sit there and take ownership of your feelings and go, hold on, it's not personal. Hold on, it's not personal. And we do that. We do that a lot. Sorry, my head is like in the clouds. We do that a lot, but it's not personal. You have to remember your feelings are the personal part, and that's what you bring to the game. So taking ownership of your feelings is a tough thing, but it's also way easier to communicate to somebody. I felt like this when this happened. Okay? And the reason our feelings are the way they are is because our feelings are influenced by our past experience and our past baggage. Okay? That's how this works. Our past experience and our past baggage determines our feelings. They're ours. We own them. Okay? So that's how you get through this, is communicate by taking ownership of your feelings. Because when you say this to them, and I've learned this, when I say to Carl, hey, I want you to know the other day I felt like this. And I'll give you the perfect example. Happened yesterday. Doctor's office called, oncology called, and they're like, hey, it's going to delay your appointment because we got to get records from Mayo or whatever. And I'm like, look, I have them all. Do you want me to run them to you? Yes, ma'am, that would be perfect because they want to make a decision and what we're going forward with right now. I'm like, okay, great. I'll leave right now and I'll run them to you. I have every scrap of paper, every slide, everything. Great. That would be fabulous. Okay. So I looked at Carl and I said, hey, I'm going to run these to the oncology's office. Granted, it's a 40-minute ride each way, but I'm going to run them. They need them right now. And he says, do whatever you want to do, dear. Okay? So, let me tell you how I took it. I took it as, well, he didn't really want me to go, and you just do whatever you think you need to do. All right, so I'm like all pissed off and really mad, and like he's copped an attitude. But he didn't say that. He said, do whatever you want to do, dear. That's what he said. It didn't mean, no, I don't want you to go. It didn't mean, I don't like the idea of you going. It didn't mean, okay, fine, we had something else going on, but you changed that plan. It didn't mean that at all. What he said was, do whatever you need to do, dear. And I took it in this really pissy way. And so the whole time that I'm on my way, to there, I am fuming, right? Fuming, thinking that he was pissy. And he wasn't. I took it that way. I was already tired. It was another thing I had to deal with. It was another thing. It was my emotion. It wasn't him. It was my emotion. And so we do that. And so, yeah, had I been able, and I was driving the opposite way, that was one of those I could have used a pillow moment. And realized afterwards, hey, you're not real smart. That's not what he said. That's your emotion. Because we talked about it last night. And I said, when you said this, I felt this way when you said this. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, my feelings were hurt. And he said, for what? For me telling you do whatever you want to do, honey, and just go ahead and run them up there if that's what you want to do? I said, yeah, because I felt like you were being sarcastic and short with me. And he said, but I'm not. And so it goes back to the way we feel. Good morning, baby. It goes back to the way we feel and how we address it. He didn't tell me, hey, don't run those reports to the doctor. He said, do whatever you want to do, babe. That's what, and he meant it. Just literally, do whatever you want to do, baby. That's exactly how he meant it. I took it as him being a sarcastic little ass. That's how I took it. But I already had so many other stuff going on in my head that I took it that way because I am the only person who can regulate my own feelings and emotions. And I blew it way out of proportion. Yeah. See, he's agreeing. But that's what I'm talking about. We get this way and we let ourselves get so wound up sometimes that we don't communicate how we feel. And so, hey, what are you talking about, Line? It makes me feel like I'm crazy for what's in my head. Yeah. We take things negatively because it's what we tell ourselves. It is an internal dialogue. It is an internal dialogue. And people don't read our minds. See, where Sarah says that it makes me feel like I'm crazy for what is and something so obviously upsetting. It is, and it's very true. And it's obviously upsetting to us that this is in our head and we've taken this in, and it's upsetting to us, but people don't read your minds. So they don't know it's upsetting to them. They don't know that we're upset over something they said. And most of the time, we sit back and go, that's because I live with a veteran with PTSD and he just doesn't get it. No, did we ever tell them? We never tell them. So it's not the PTSD sometimes. It's not the PTSD sometimes. And see, so sometimes they're just stating facts and we see it as negative. Yeah, because it's something we don't want to hear. Hello? It's something we don't want to hear. Carl is so different than I am. He analyzes the shit out of everything. It's a good thing. I mean, we balance each other that way. The one thing when somebody said, when Carl and I first got together, what did I love about him? I love the fact that he kept me grounded. He does. Now, y'all know, I'm 90 to nothing all the time. And Carl keeps me grounded. So imagine my life before Carl. Imagine my life before him if he keeps me grounded and pulls me back and says, hold on, we need to look at this. Imagine what my life would be like without that. And he's not being negative. He's looking at all the scenarios and stating the facts, and I got my head and my heart and my soul set on doing something, and he's like, "Baby, hold on a minute." And I'm like, "So what? You don't want to do what you don't like my idea now?" And that's exactly how I come across. And I'm like, "You know what? You never support me." And I say that he supports me all the time. But I say that when it goes against what I do, because it's my emotion inside and it's how I take it and it's how I'm feeling and it's all based on that. So those days that we want to put that pillow over their head, remember, we don't look good in orange. It's not in our color wheel. Stripes should go up and down and not round and round. So you have to stop. Um, and the key is right. It's easy to blame everything on their PTSD. It's a convenient excuse just sitting there to use. And you know why it is more interesting, and I think Nikki and I have had this conversation before. The thing about these support groups, regardless of which one you're in, we PTSD becomes this issue when the reality is we really are at an advantage. We are at such an advantage over other relationships because we think it's PTSD all the time and it's really relationship most of the time. And so what happens is that we learn to talk and we learn to communicate with each other. And so we've learned to talk and we've learned to communicate with each other, which we don't do in normal relationships because we have nothing to blame it on. So those of us that put in the work, those of us that put in the time, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you didn't have PTSD and you weren't willing to put in the work and you weren't willing to put in the time and you were still in that relationship with that person, your relationship probably would have failed anyway, because you're not willing to put in the work and the time. We have an advantage because we're like, oh, it's got to be PTSD. And then all of a sudden we start looking at things and we're like, oh crap, it's a relationship. Oh crap, I'm just as bad as he is. Oh crap, I brought as much to this as they did. Oh my God, I demeaned them. Oh my gosh, I overreacted. Oh my goodness, I talked about feelings. Oh, I didn't talk about my feelings. I just accused of what you did wrong. That happens in any relationship, not just PTSD. That happens in every relationship. And so when we do this over and over and over and over again, we don't understand. I mean, come on, if somebody said to you all the time that you did everything wrong, how are you going to feel about yourself? But it's easy for us to say it and then blame it on PTSD. Well, you know what? You're just snappy and you're being an ass and that's your PTSD. No, it's not. You're snappy and you're being an ass because I was probably a bitch to you to begin with. So when you put all the pieces together, and I blamed you when you said this, and we start that. Yeah, and so and when we start putting the work in, it gives major aha moments and shows the faults in the relationships and makes us wake up. It does. It doesn't mean that we still won't have those moments that we want to put pillows over their heads. Okay? It doesn't mean that we still won't want to have those moments where we want to pop their head off. Okay? It is so much that we forget. We're still going to have those moments we want to put a pillow over their head. We're still going to have those moments that we want to pop their head off. We're still going to have those moments when we say I've had enough. We're still going to have these moments when we say, what the heck am I doing here? That's all still going to happen because that's normal and it happens in every single relationship, not just in PTSD relationships, in every relationships, right? She says, I've been really trying hard not to hyper focus on the words he says so much and try to read into something that simply isn't there. Owning my own thought process, I completely agree. Stress plays a huge part of my life. I absolutely need to stop filling the cups that girl, my cup runneth over with a lot of things. Babe, but the words he says, if they're painful, have that conversation, JC, that says, I felt this way when you said. And not necessarily when it's happening, by the way, okay? Because then it becomes defensive, because nobody wants to have they're going to take it as a thing. But when you sit back later and say, hey, remember yesterday when you said this, I heard this. And now Carl and I have gone from when you said yesterday to when we're having a conversation, we're like, well, hang on, that's not what I heard. I heard you say this. No, that's not what I said, but that's what I heard. And now we can almost address it as it happens, not every time. We can almost address it as it happens. So you really do need to address it because all of a sudden they're going to realize that sometimes it is their verbiage. And we sit here and talk about, oh, well, they don't have empathy. They don't know how to show empathy. They don't know how to show empathy. Have we ever taught them how to show empathy? So that'll probably be a tomorrow conversation because we're already running over. But I just need y'all to know that orange is not in our color wheel. Stripes go way better up and down and not round and round. So let's don't get to that point that we want to hold pillows or pop heads off. But it happens and we feel that way. And how you overcome that feeling is to take a step backwards. JC, stop walking on your eggshells. Stop walking on your eggshells, love. They can be extremely painful and you tend to bottle it up. I just don't want to trigger. I agree. I need to address it. Don't we will, if you need to message me, talk to me about it later. We'll talk about this tomorrow in depth and that may be very helpful. But you have to communicate because when you walk on eggshells, it creates deceit. And how do you know how people really feel? I'm gonna kiss her nothing this morning.
You're doing your thing. Wait till you finish.
You always kiss me when you walk by. See, how do you know? How do we know that? Eggshells are really, really bad. Eggshells create deceit in their minds. You don't have an honest, open relationship when you walk on eggshells and you think you hold things back. Because I'm not getting into the personal thing that went on last night, but I held something in for 3 days that exploded last night. Exploded. And it was so simple fix. But I held on to it for 3 days and it exploded. I'm not doing it again. I'm learning. I'm a work in progress. I go backwards a lot. So, just remember that. All right, so like, what is today? Today is Tuesday. I don't even remember my days hardly. I really will tomorrow. The boot camp information is coming out for everybody who is in boot camp. We will do that. Please do not forget that we are a lot of us, and anybody who wants to attend, anybody who wants to go with us, that first week in October, the dates are posted. We are all headed to Wichita Falls, Texas, where we're going to be able to spend time with our Nakia and our Richard. It's not going backwards. It's just being aware and correcting it. We're going to spend time with our Richard, and we're going to get to spend time with each other who, in this year-ish, little more than a year process, we have become so close and we share so many intimate things with each other. A lot of us do. And we've never seen each other face to face. And so we're all going to get to be with each other face to face. And the amazing thing is our veterans are coming. We're going to go do some stuff to Richard and Nakia's house. You know, she's his over time people. I just want to go beat the tail of these people who have hung up doors that are crooked. And we're going to go get the back deck on and do some things to their house for Silver Star veteran and his Silver Star wife, because she is amazing and I cannot wait. And Nakia, I just want you to know you're going to be having to get more hot dogs or weenies for them taters. You might need about 10 walks because we all coming. So you might need a lot bigger woks to cook your taters in. But we're going to fix everything. We're going to make it right. So that information is on the Facebook pages and in the groups. And if y'all will share that. We did the estimate yesterday, and we worked on that estimate yesterday. And so the total amount of funds we need to raise is about $10,000. But when we're done, Nakia's not going to want for another thing. Richard's going to be warm. She's going to be warm. They're going to be dry. They're going to be safe. She can borrow more walks. I love you, Nakia. total cost of this project, and we're getting donations from so many people, is about $10,000. So it is going to be all nice and dry and safe and spectacular, and we are all super super excited. So we literally have 5 weeks to raise $10,000. So if you $5 at a time will help. If you can donate $5, we've got that on there. Somebody asked me yesterday, can they send us e-gift cards to Home Depot? Absolutely. We are working with Home Depot because of what they do to the veterans. So that is important too. Um, yeah, we do. And I think we're going to register that, Stephanie. Nikia will do a special project for, Stephanie just sent me a message. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, we're going to do a special home warming project for them. So we're all coming. And what I found empowering about this, and I know I'm running late, but what I found empowering about this whole thing is it wasn't just a group of the wives getting together and saying, hey, we're going to go and we'll find volunteers there. It was when it was mentioned that we're going to go, these veterans just picked up and put all of their own demons behind them and said, we're going. We're going. We've got a veteran who's driving from Connecticut who is terrified to be in a car to drive 2 hours to go to the doctor, and he's going to drive for 2 or 3 days in a car. We're talking about veterans with TBI and PTSD who are just willing to be, no, we're going to go help another brother. And to be able to see that level, I think was probably the most empowering thing I've ever witnessed. So I just want to put that out there. But I'm so proud of everything. Yeah, and we got Nick who is doing the long ride, and then we have Richard McCulley who lives just north of Oklahoma City, and he's coming. Richard McCulley is coming, and he is all ready to come, and so I'm really excited for that. And he has a major TBI, and he wants to come be part of this. So to watch this all come together, this is what we do as a family and as a community. So anyway, I know I ran really late today watching me mumble. These are one of these moments when I had to think, okay, if I put a pillow over his head, I can design the deck and I can order the stuff for the deck, but I'm not sure I want to tote the board, so I might put the pillow over his head after October when the deck is done. Just saying. So, anyway, y'all have a blessed day. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran. It's okay to love them. We'll get through this. And remember, orange is not in your color wheel. Y'all have a good day. Bye.